The central concern of the passage is, option A says, a critical analysis of Tuan's approach. Now, while Tuan's approach is mentioned, his approach about humanistic geography, the key argument here is humanistic geography. It is not Tuan's approach that is the central premise or central concern of the passage. First off. Second, it is not a critical analysis. The author doesn't critique Tuan's approach. To critique would be to point out positives and negatives, advantages and flaws. But no flaws have been discussed. The author seems to be aligned with or adherent to Tuan's model or Tuan's approach. So it is not a critical analysis, and also that is not the primary argument. The primary argument, which comes in the first paragraph, is something else. So A is close, seems correct, but is actually limited. We can eliminate A. It is also distorted. The difference of viewpoints between scientists and geographers is a very limited reference. This is a reference to the fifth paragraph. We see geographers mentioned here. There are some other passive references to geographers, but then the difference between scientists and geographers is a key argument of this paragraph only. That cannot be the central concern of the passage. So B is incorrect. Option C tells us Tuan's ideal conversation model. There are again two references to this. This is primarily referenced in the fourth paragraph here. Let's move up a little bit. We see the ideal conversation model mentioned here in the second paragraph and then explained in the third paragraph. So what happens in such a conversation? We also see a reference to this in the last paragraph here. But that said, that's just references across 3 paragraphs, still cannot be the central concern of the passage. So C is incorrect, it is limited. Option D says scientific theory versus human geography. Now this covers much more ground, even as compared to A. We find that the very first few statements or first few lines of the first and the second paragraphs, they give us this particularly. This was not the brute empiricism that underwrote some of the more single-minded exercises in spatial science. We talk about science here. The claim that all scientific knowledge or scientific theory was grounded in the experience of an object world because humanistic geography invoked experience expressly to keep objectivism at bay. So if objectivism could define spatial science or scientific knowledge, then humanistic geography wanted to keep objectivism at bay. It marked the human subject with knowledge and skill with the emotions and feelings that were intrinsic to human agency and human beings. So it is different from scientific inquiry. It is not something which is completely cold and detached. It is something which has knowledge and skills involved, also emotions and feelings, and it is intrinsic to human agency and to human beings in general. That's why we define it as humanistic geography, as opposed to scientific knowledge. We can see this from the second paragraph as well. There was considerable variation in the force and discrimination with which this suspicion towards theory, not towards particular theories, I stress, but towards theory in general, was advanced. It had counterparts within historical materialism too, as I will subsequently show. But here I want to confine myself to 3 examples within humanistic geography. So, examples within humanistic geography, that is, again, different from, there is variation from, or suspicion towards theory. Particular theories, not particular theories, but theory in general. And theory, as we can infer from this, is talking about scientific theory because the previous paragraph talks about it. We see this then in the later paragraphs. We see geographical imagination mentioned here. We talk about theoretical apparatus mentioned here. Again, theory versus humanistic geography. Geographical imagination in general, in a generalization. And we see this in the last paragraph again, where there is a mention of humanistic geography, and that is counterpointed to theoretical mediation or the theoretical, which, as we have established in this passage, in this context, refers to scientific theory. We had eliminated A, B, and C. We find that D is a valid answer. So the correct answer is option D.